नमस्कार और सारा प्रणाम। सारा समय के RKB शो में आपका स्वागत है। मेरा नाम है राजीव कुमार बजाज और इस बार हम लोग हैं एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट जगह पर। जी हाँ, हो सकता है कि अगले 10 सालों में या 15 सालों में ये जगह जो है ये भारत के लिए और इस पूरे के पूरे इलाके के लिए बहुत ही ज़्यादा अहम भूमिका निभाए। This place is the Nicholas Perumal Research Center. And let me tell you this, in the next 10 years or perhaps the next 15 years, this will possibly be the hub for perhaps amongst the greatest scientific discoveries and amongst the greatest leap forwards in the area of biotechnology.
माओ मातू देख ले आंगन में मंदिर के तेरे कितने दिए मुस्कान हैं। माओ मातू देख ले आंगन में मंदिर के तेरे तेरी बेटी सारी आए हैं। शुभ शंख गूंजे जाए हैं घनी रात का कर अंत तू अब दे प्रकाश तुरंत तू तेरे पथ के राही आए हैं। शुभ शंख गूंजे जाए हैं। मानव की जय मानवता की जय हो तपस्या की विजय।
And at the moment with us, we have the woman behind this entire center, Dr. Swati Perumal. Thank you very much, ma'am, for allowing us to come over here and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
When did you start this place?
This was inaugurated by President Kalam November 2004. We had a smaller center in Mulund, but we grew out of it and we increased and trebled the number of scientists. So today we have nearly 450 scientists working.
450 scientists.
Correct.
And all
and
of
they're
them
not only in this center, they are in Canada, in the UK, in Chennai, in Hyderabad.
Now
So it's really globally.
We saw a lot of art and we saw a lot of beautiful artifacts all around this place. Are you a collector yourself? Or?
Yes, the art that you see here is not the expensive art, but it is really an art which has meaning, symbolic meaning of ancient Indian science. So mathematics, astronomy, astrology, healing, those are the things that we value the most here at this center. So we all creative people.
Absolutely wonderful. And this conch shell over here, ye shankh jo hai yahan pe.
Right.
This is, where does it come from? It's beautifully carved. And
It's actually from Bengal, from Calcutta. And, you know, we have adopted what we call the science anthem. It was written by Tagore in 1917, the opening of the Bose Research Institute. And we found his old verses which said that you must win over ignorance. You know, you must win victory over ignorance.
The great
Tagore wrote it for Bose.
That's
Bose
right.
was a physicist.
That's right.
And Tagore wrote this most beautiful science anthem,
Yeah.
which we've restored and we use it here.
And this is for the information of our viewers. Those not so scientifically inclined would remember, or rather those scientifically inclined of course would remember. Those who are not so scientifically inclined would not remember the fact that you actually have a subatomic particle named after Bose himself. It's called the boson.
Yeah.
And Bose-Einstein statistics determines the path of some subatomic particles.
Correct.
Now, very unfortunately, we haven't had too many scientists of that level up till now.
Right.
And we can discuss that as
Yeah,
we move
sure.
along. But before that, we would like you to tell us a bit about this beautiful, absolutely beautiful, I can't even call it a painting. This is out of the world. I mean, this is really lovely. Could you tell us a bit about that, ma'am?
Yes, it's a family heirloom. It belonged to my great-great-grandfather. It's done with vegetable dyes, so there's no paint. It's all vegetable dyes which was done, and it's on canvas, which is why it lasted so long. Cloth, really.
Right, but before we go
Rose
any
from
further,
that.
we must tell our viewers this, that Dr. Swati Perumal has just been honored with the knighthood of the Order of Merit of France. Now, how did that come about? Just tell us that.
Well, I got a letter from President Chirac saying that this order has been bestowed. And it has two things very special. One is it's a knighthood, chevalier.
That's
so
right.
that came from the 14th century, that you have to be chivalrous.
That's right.
You have to be compassionate.
What is it called?
merciful.
Chevalier du Ordre du Mérite National.
Correct.
Something like that.
Yes,
Isn't that
absolutely.
right? Gee.
And then it has Marianne. Marianne is
Oh, I
the
see.
symbol of liberty and reason.
That's right.
And a female. So because in the French Revolution it was against a very male monarchy. So for me that was, you know, very
Yes.
nice that it was so ancient.
It's that beautiful face that we see on most French
Yeah.
orders, isn't
Correct,
it? That,
on all the euros, the French
G.
euro and
G. Marianne,
so
that's right.
Marianne. So liberty and reason. And then the chevalier, that means you have to be always very compassionate. You have to be after a good principle. Chevalier means you defend your principle.
That's
So
right.
for us that was a very nice.
But you started off in Mumbai. You did your MBBS from here, from
Right, from Bombay.
which
Then
college?
I was at KEM,
Okay.
place where all great doctors came. And then went on to Harvard University.
Where you
studied
did
there.
your
I did
Masters
my
in
master's
Public
degree.
Health.
Right. I came back and I'm trying to do my third degree in information technology and intellectual property law. So, I'm academic.
Wonderful.
This painting is a washi, it's from a Japanese sculpture, and it has 5 circles all connecting each other, and it has these straight lines which convey infinity, that there is infinite potential in whatever you do, and these circles touch each other, that means teamwork, and these waves actually signify the atom or the smallest molecule.
Wonderful.
It's a
Who's done
vibration.
this?
Eriko Hariki is a very famous Japanese
Eriko Hariki,
sculptor.
yeah.
Yes. This whole center is built like the human system. It has 2 great arteries, then it's connected very quickly, because one of the problems in science is that we don't talk to each other. And
Yes.
here this whole idea of this center is to convey very quickly how you can work together with other fields.
Dr. Perumal, this says analytical science. What does that mean?
Yeah,
why does
this
it
is
say?
where we look at finding new drugs. This whole area is for discovery. So we would analyze the sample of a new compound inside a bloodstream or something like that. So all these machines inside will be analyzing blood samples. Now you see these paintings on each lab, they're all from different museums of the world, and the idea is to make this a very very nice place to work, very safe. You see that we have a lot of women. We have nearly 100 scientists who are women. So I think this is one
out of the 450,
Correct,
you
correct.
have about 100
lot of
scientists.
women scientists. And then we have these fume hoods over there which actually have safety features, so we can do things
Right,
like
ma'am. Now, coming back to the other thing, of course, we'll talk about the kind of research that you've been doing over
Yeah.
here. We will talk about that.
Yeah.
But the new drug regime which has come, the new patent regime which has come up, which has really opened up the pharma sector,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, how well or how badly are we doing in India? Could you take us through that?
I think if the government, like the IT sector, just left us alone to do our thing, you know, just like the IT, you will see in another 10 years that India will make drugs for the rest of the world. But we need to be left alone, not tinkered around, and you know, put pressure on to do, to make more controls than is needed.
Do you think
Because-
that's actually happening? Do you think people are
Yes.
actually trying to...
Yes, unfortunately the new drug policy which has been announced is very, very controlled. And that I think will hurt all these scientists here, because they're really working to get India into the world map.
जी हाँ,
They're
कहने का मतलब
working
ये
so
हुआ
hard.
कि जिस तरीके से इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी को आज़ादी दी गई
Right,
डेवलप करने के लिए,
Yes.
वो आज़ादी
Yes.
अब
biotech or pharma.
बायोटेक और फार्मा को भी देनी चाहिए
हाँ.
ताकि हम लोग आगे बढ़ सकें. Because after all,
हाँ.
it's Indian brains that have been powering the
हाँ.
software sector.
Exactly,
And perhaps that's what is required here.
exactly. And
So-
these scientists, you see, they can
Gee.
just, with good equipment, good facilities, they can take on the world, for
That's
sure.
right.
And they will really be able to be world beaters.
Gee. In terms of what you said right now with government, we'll finish that off in just a minute. In spite of the experience of the last 15 years, 1991 में जब सबसे पहले इकोनॉमी को
Yeah.
खोला गया,
Yeah.
उसके बाद अभी तक 15 बरस हो गए,
Yeah.
15 years. इन 15 वर्षों में आपके मुताबिक सरकार ने अभी सीखा नहीं है कुछ? They have not learned
हाँ.
that you have to allow people to run with it to be able to progress?
I think the Prime Minister is very forward-looking himself. He's a liberalization architect.
That's right.
But he's in a coalition government. And the coalition government, the parts of it, are not letting this free.
What would you
freedom.
what would you like the government to do? What would you like to see should happen? What?
Basically, I really would like the government to leave us alone, you know, that we can just grow and expand. And
How is the government stopping you from growing?
because they keep changing the policies, keep getting regulatory shocks, every quarter we have to rethink what the government will do. Unlike other nations where the government is actually subsidizing biotech. Look at China, look at Korea.
Right, now I would like you to take us through that. For example, you're doing research on a new molecule.
Right.
ठीक है सर? कोई नया molecule है जिसके ऊपर आप अभी research कर रहे हैं.
Right.
आपने उसको develop किया, 3 महीने हो गए.
Right.
Drug policy change हो गई.
हाँ.
How does that affect you?
Very much, exactly.
How? बताइए.
Because suddenly you have to cut your spending because all the money which comes for research comes from your domestic market.
Right.
Right? So if you cut down domestic market, we have no money left for research. So where do we go? We either try to do exports or we try to get money from abroad. But even to do exports, I have to build a US FDA facility. Then I can export.
Wait a minute. You developed a new drug.
Right.
Okay. This new policy which comes in,
Yeah.
it prevents you from selling that drug. It prevents you from patenting that drug. What does it do?
No, it controls the price of your already selling drug.
All right.
From which profits you fund this research. So if suddenly that price were to fall, it would be just above the cost of production. You have no money to invest in research.
So in effect, what you're really saying is that perhaps the price control regime
Right.
should not be so much in the hands of the government. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. We should leave it to competition because our competition is very severe and lots of good companies here. So they could compete and bring down the prices.
No, but the only problem here is, Dr. Birmal, you have a huge amount of people, huge number of people who can't afford these drugs.
Right.
So are you suggesting the government should then subsidize
Yes.
drugs for them? Is that what you're saying?
No, the industry is ready to actually give subsidized drugs to the below the poverty line people and say, okay, for these we will supply drugs at let's say 30%, what we give to distributors, we supply straight to the hospital. Now that would be good, but hospitals have to have the supply chain, they have to have money,
Right.
they have money to turn it around. Now some governments have done it very well. Look at Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu buys in bulk and then sells it to its people. Very efficient.
Lovely.
But it hasn't been replicated by other states. Or hospitals. Look at Tata Hospital. It buys in bulk, supplies it at a much cheaper rate to its people, does a great job in cancer. So this way, people have to become more efficient at buying and selling.
And the distribution system also has to be more efficient.
Correct. And if we wanted to really help all the below the poverty line, then we should have a kind of a box in which everyone puts in their drugs and it helps them. We're happy to do that.
However, the fact remains that as far as the cutting edge of research is concerned, where you are at the moment,
Right.
over there you are talking about spending millions and millions of dollars
Exactly.
in developing a
Right.
new kind of drug.
Exactly. So
Like-
money, it needs money.
Like for example,
Yeah.
the way prostaglandin was developed for myasthenia gravis,
Correct.
say for example the way a large number of steroids were developed, especially for heart patients,
Right.
for cardiac patients and for other people,
Right.
the way Viagra was developed by Pfizer
Right.
and turned into
Exactly.
$1 billion business for them.
Right.
So are we anywhere close to doing something like that here?
You know, we would have to mortgage our long-term ideas for short-term gains.
Gee.
By what I mean is that, okay, let's provide drugs almost free to people. Then you have no money left for research. So in the long term, you will buy these drugs from outside, which will be more expensive.
So in effect what is happening is, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
by regulating our pharma industry and our biotech industry to such an extent,
Right.
our government is actually helping the foreign multinationals
Correct.
so that our dependence on them never goes away. Is that what is happening?
In the long term, we will have to import drugs from them
That's
at a
what is
much higher
happening.
price.
Right.
Because there is no research from India.
Is it
coming
possible
out.
to go into this room?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
is this,
And,
or
I
is
wanted
this,
to take you to a high throughput screening.
let's go there. Okay. Who's designing this building?
This building, a little bit by me with the architect.
This is very beautiful. Who's the architect?
There's a guy called Nitin Kidawala. He did it really well.
Right.
But it
And-
was designed by, of course, scientists who wanted to make sure
And yourself.
we did the work right. So each one of, would have a mirror on the walls.
Beautiful. This is very beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of where the Piramal Group is today, because you've acquired a lot of companies.
Yeah.
You've also acquired a lot of companies,
Right.
like Hex,
Right.
Russell Laboratories. I think
Yeah.
you've just acquired them.
Yeah.
how does that work when you do mergers and acquisitions? Because you're getting a lot of scientists and other people from other companies to come
Yes,
to your
now
company.
we have scientists from 22 countries. They are from Poland, from Switzerland, from China, everywhere. They work with us. And it's wonderful because so much diversity adds to ideas.
So
adds
how
to
do you
innovation.
amalgamate them all together? How do you integrate them together?
Well, mostly these countries are based out of Canada, which is a melting pot, and the UK and India. And they work by video conferencing across borders. So
Yeah,
from Chennai and...
that's technology. That I'm sure you would have been able to handle. You know, you have somebody working in Chennai, somebody in Mumbai, somebody in Vancouver, somebody in Toronto, somebody in London, somebody perhaps upstate in Aberdeen or wherever.
When you do an experiment, it's interesting. You can work on 1 gram in Chennai, another gram in Canada, and then the two can exchange and which one was better. You know, so you've heard about it in the IT industry, but that's bits and bytes. This is actual experiments.
Right.
This is actual innovation.
Really wonderful.
Yeah.
Really.
Somebody from
now,
the
how do you integrate the culture? Because you've got somebody from China, you've got somebody from Chinese Taipei, and you've got somebody from Canada. Agreed. All of them must be talking in English.
Yeah, they do. But you know, I was sitting in a room where a Chinese guy was speaking to an Indian guy. And they were all exchanging best practices. It was wonderful. It was just superb. This is our high throughput facility, which the ambassador of France just opened just last week.
And for the information of our viewers, we must tell you that it's the ambassador of France, the French ambassador here in India, who actually presented Dr. Swati Piramal with the knighthood of the Order of Merit.
Yeah. And he came down to this facility because I requested him that in science we all are a team. It's not just for one person, but it's for every single scientist.
All right, now what does this mean? Could you tell us that? This high throughput screening and biomarker facility. For the information of our viewers, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Just tell us that, please.
See, this whole thing is run by robotics, is run by robos. And it's all electronics. You can see only one person does this whole thing here. And here 50,000 data points are done inside a few days. If we were to do it by hand, this would take at least 6 months to analyze one product. But here we can do it in a matter of days. So we can screen a large number of compounds. So what we've done is collected soil and earth samples from the Himalayas to Kanyakumari, from our oceans to the terrestrium. And then we bring them here and say, okay, can we look and find whether there's a new drug? And you know what, we have found some very interesting leads from the ocean, which nobody else is looking. Indian Ocean is wonderful because it's a warm water ocean. So we're able to find new bacteria from the ocean.
Right.
And this is the way they come and then they actually look at...
So in other words, what this thing does is, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It breaks down every compound into its various parts.
Correct.
Tests out everything.
Yeah.
And then gives you an entire report of what it consists of, what it can do, and what the properties are thereof.
Right, right. And it does it fast because it has a titer of 50,000 data points. So it's just because it's computer, it does things much faster than you could do manually.
However, the fact remains that it would only be giving you back what you've already fed into it.
Right. If you feed in rubbish, you will get rubbish.
That's it.
And then we have a biomarker facility which is sterile, but you can't go into it.
Yeah, we can't
but
go into that.
It's a genetic, proteomic chip.
Okay,
DNA,
I think we'd request Mr. Shetty, our cameraman, to just give us an idea of what that is. We can't go inside, of course.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of your core team, everybody has a core team.
Yeah.
Who are the kind of people who are there in your core team, and how many are there?
I think the heads of all the units would be about 20 or 30 people, led by 5 very senior people who are innovators themselves. They've all filed patents. Most of them have PhDs. So Dr. Somesh Sharma, he's a very interesting man. He's an American who's come back to India after 35 years. So the other thing happening is reverse brain drain.
Lovely.
All these scientists are coming back. This is our library. It is also connected to other libraries in our own facilities in UK, Canada, India.
How many times did you change the design of this place?
None, I think. We just spent a lot of time planning and then we said go for it, because we built this inside 11 months. This whole facility was built in 11 months.
Now, what about you yourself? Are you also involved in active research, or are you just involved in driving ideas? Or or what? I mean, somebody comes to you with a great idea and says, all right, I think we could do it this way. You have a committees, obviously screening all that.
Yes, yes.
And you also have your own instinct.
Yes.
As to what you can do.
I head strategic alliances and I have a broad knowledge about government, regulatory, and what we are doing. So when I talk to other people and I say, okay, these are the things we do well, these are things you do well, is there a place for partnership? Is there a place where we can benefit from you, you can benefit from us? So most of our collaborations, acquisitions, all driven by that idea of partnership.
Now, what I would like to ask you is, just now, when we were sitting in your room before the interview started, you said that you had some Americans over, and they are looking at perhaps a research partnership.
Right, right.
Up till now, the kind of outsourcing that has been done has been of a different nature altogether.
Yeah, absolutely.
This knowledge partnership, could you tell us a bit more about that?
You know, when they come here and they look and they see the scientists and they talk to the people, they're amazed at the talent we have. And very often we are able to throw an army behind an idea.
Right.
By what I mean is that there are 30 scientists who can work on an idea this guy has in America, let's say. And he comes here and I said, 30 people will work on your idea. Within 2 weeks we'll give you an answer. We'll give you the product or we'll make this chemical. He's amazed at that kind of speed because they would take only 4 people. They would be able to do it in 6 months at X cost, whereas we could drop that cost to half.
So in effect, what you're really saying is that as far as we are concerned, and I assume that works for most other very good pharma companies, is that in India...
Yeah, but you would have to have a base knowledge, you'd have to have facilities, you'd have to have a specialization in that field, let's say chiral chemistry, you really got to know it well. So you got to build that team first before you can say, okay, I'll do it for anybody.
Tell us about Harvard. When you went to Harvard, you did your Masters in Public Health.
Right.
And you were also the commemorative speaker? And the
commencement speaker.
Commencement speaker. I'm so sorry. You were the commencement speaker.
Yeah, they say when you graduate, it's commencement of a new life.
Right. So you were the commencement speaker after you graduated or post-graduated, so to speak. What does that mean? Being the commencement speaker, I mean, how is it?
Yeah, actually in Harvard, because there are a whole lot of very smart people, you have to choose somebody. There's actually a competition. And the competition is across all universities. So it's the law school, the medical school, the School of Public Health, a number of different schools. Then you get chosen by the way you speak, the way you talk, what you want to say. So I remember it was 1992, it was years ago. So I said that I was Indian woman, I wore a sari, came from a developing country to Harvard and what knowledge meant to me and things like that and what I wanted to do. So I guess they like that. I think it was the first Indian woman which they had ever chosen. Brilliant,
absolutely brilliant. Now talking about this place, where do you see it going? At the moment you already have a huge turnover by Indian standards. In terms of profits, what are the projections?
Fortunately for us, it's that growth of our domestic market which is funding this research center. So we, unlike small biotech companies, don't have to keep on looking for funding and then sinking, just like most biotechnology companies around the world. Our funds are met by our domestic market. So that's very good because it's steady, it will really give us the push. And because we have this advantage, I see that we will be able to bring a new drug out to market for a cost of $50 million. Competing cost is $1 billion. Why am I saying this atrocious, outstanding goal? Because I think we can do it. Maybe I'm wrong by 100%, it'll be 100 million. But I still think that we can bring affordable drugs not only to India but to the rest of the world. That's my dream. So getting a drug discovered here, maybe going out globally and getting, respect.
And what do you want from the government, apart from being left alone?
But, not to tinker around every year, not to bring down prices every year, keep it steady because all that's funding this research. It's not being used, for a happy lifestyle or something like that. It's used for research, for the nation. And if the government cannot at least fund it, like Korea and China, at least let industry fund it from its own profits. It's very simple. And you have to balance equity and access. and you have to have the idea that India must invest in science and technology.
That's right. That was the idea from day one.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? I mean, after all,
But
you look
it's
at...
not doing it. I was talking to about 100 CFOs. I said, how many of you have patents? Only 3 said they had. So, you know, 95% of the Indian companies do not own their own patents.
Which is terrible.
Yeah. So we've got a long way to go. And how will that happen? Is that you've got to get the idea that science and technology is vital to you surviving in the next millennium.
But I thought that was the rise on the way for establishing so many great institutions when the country became independent.
Yeah, Nehru did a great job, I think.
Absolutely.
2000 research institutes.
दुरुस्त बात है, जैसे कि हमारे दर्शकों को याद होगा, बार-बार हम लोग यहाँ पे कहते हैं कि 1947 के बाद जिस तरीके से IITs बने, IIMs बने, अलग-अलग इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ साइंस बना, आज की तारीख में वही सब हम चीज भूल गए हैं. Opening up the economy has meant कि बाहर से जो भी आता है उसको ले लीजिए.
Exactly.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
We have to learn
and
to
Nehru
compete.
was a visionary. You know,
right.
He had this idea that science. He said so in his Independence Day speech one day, where he said science is really, you know, it'll harness the nation. And President Kalam has said it so often. But execution is important too.
Execution depends on the people who are in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Rather, execution finally, of course, depends on the bureaucrats, but the policy is laid down by whosoever is in government.
A forward-looking policy would be really beneficial for us. I think India could be the drug maker for the world. I have no doubt about it. Now,
could you give us a rundown on what happens, say, in China or in Korea, South Korea? What happens there?
Well, China, the number of patents coming out from China, the government has spending 2.5% of GDP, which is really large, on science and technology. President Bush said $137 billion I'm giving to my scientists to compete with people from India and China. Look, you know, our government has not even $1 billion being given. So how are we competing? Is only because of our intellect and because of what Nehru did, you know, in 47, where he built these research institutes and we have the manpower. So it's only because of that we are able to compete with the Americans and the Chinese. Purely on intellect, you know, and our language, of course, because we can speak as well as anyone else in the world. But Korea is spending a huge amount on public funding of science. Singapore is competing with us. The government has started a biotech park, a pharma park. They called me and they said, I'll give you visas tomorrow if you want to come. But we said, no, we have something about staying in India, you know, of wanting to do it for our nation.
Right.
So Singapore, China, Korea, Taiwan, all the Asian superpowers. And today we are about 5 years ahead, I think, in just our technology in life sciences. But it would quickly fall behind, it's already falling behind a number of patents, if we wanted to grow.
But other people are catching up.
Other people catching up.
Absolutely. Other people are catching up. So which means what we require is a very forward-looking government. We require a government which celebrates, not just encourages, but actually celebrates the scientific temper and realizes that the spinal cord of this nation has to be its science and technology.
Absolutely.
What is your dream? Now just tell us that.
Yeah. My dream is to get an Indian drug discovered perhaps in this center or anywhere else in India, to go globally at the cost of $50 million, 1/10 that of the cost in the world, and so that this drug is affordable not only for my nation, but for all the people in the world, 6 billion people in the world who do not have access to medicines today, would get a new drug from India which was affordable and which was world class.
And which is possible if only the government wakes up.
Right.
Right. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a wake-up call for the government.
तब श्रद्धालु आवो रे, देश धन्य बनाओ रे, योग वालो त्याग वालो, अनंत पीड़ा पाने वालो, योग वालो त्याग वालो, अनंत पीड़ा पाने वालो, आवो रे अपराजित और शक्तिशाली बंधन मुक्त रे, आओ ज्ञानी आओ कर्मी, देश के दाग मिटाओ रे.
Dr. Swati Piramal, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. It's been an honor talking to you.
Thank you.
It's been really wonderful talking to you because one feels so proud, one feels really and truly proud of being an Indian when one comes to a facility like this, led by somebody like yourself. Right, that's all we've got as far as the RKB show is concerned. You keep watching सारा समय, आप देखते रहें सारा समय. जहाँ तक हमारा प्रश्न है, हम आपको मिलेंगे कल किसी और जगह से. तब तक के लिए नमस्कार और सारा प्रणाम.